Well, hello and welcome to Joy and Gratitude. I'm Nio Queiro, and
I'm Beth Mercurio, and welcome back.
oh boy, I don't know about you, but last week was a week. When do they get better?
I know. Ah,
Oh my God,
ah.
it was a week of uncertainty.
Tell me
You know
more.
how
I'm with you, but tell me more.
you know how you think you have gotten everything and just set up so, and then you go into your week and everything you plan goes in a different direction and you are in hurry up and wait. I last week I had a, a big retreat that I was putting together for this group. Was very excited about it, but as that was going on, other things were just moving with my other clients. And out of nowhere, they're pulling me in multiple directions. And it was like, what is going on? Why did my schedule become helter skelter and I don't even know what I'm doing? I felt so lost, so unaware of what was next. And then that's when I had to, like, just stop and say, "Okay, accept the situation, and what is it that you want to happen with each one of these things?" And lean into that. Take the steps you can control, get some popcorn, and watch the stuff you can't.
I, I love that. It's like, right? Like the different movie scenes of our lives.
Yeah,
Like, woo, which scene am I in? Yeah, that's
exactly,
really.
and it really helped because, I started just giving the clients what I could control. And then I was kind of like sitting back, not reacting, because that's the worst thing you could do, but sitting back and just taking in what their reaction to that was. And then, you know, um, a good friend of mine, her name's Beth, she gave me this little book. It's a picture book called Zoom. And Zoom saved my life last week. Because Zoom let me take all this uncertainty, not knowing the results of contracts, not knowing if my clients that were going through the retreat were going to play nice in the sandbox, and let me look at things from a higher level, not feeling like I needed to be the seedling, but I could actually appreciate the flower. And, through all those phases, except the phases that grow until that flower blooms, and then you're smelling the rose, you know? And I was so grateful for that. So I don't know. How was your week? I mean, that was my crazy, but how was your week?
Yeah. Oh, it's so I love your when does it end? And I think we know the answer is never, right? It never ends. And so it comes back to what you said, which is if we know that the craziness of life, the uncertainty of life is the only guarantee, then what do we do with that, right? And I love the Zoom book. So the Zoom book can be so powerful for adults, for teams, for organizations. Exactly. But the fun part about that is like we actually used to share that with our girls when they were really little. And so they remember that book. And then I was reintroduced to it in leadership development work about sort of like we always get so caught down in the little weeds and we don't get to zoom back out. And I often talk about being on the balcony, right? And how to zoom out and be on the balcony. And I too had a really, I think I've said, and if I haven't, I'll certainly say it now that I sort of have a commitment to myself to live in flow, right? And that's really hard for me because my instinct is to plan so much. And planning makes me feel in control, right? So when I don't have plans, I start to feel out of control. And I've worked really hard to undo that for myself and be like, it's okay to be in flow. When you're in flow, you're able to make choices about whatever your immediate circumstances, right? And one of the things that I have on my calendar, which is funny, on my calendar, I have a thing that goes off in the mornings at 8:45 that says, "What's your win?" And the win is what's important now. And it's this idea of getting really focused on it came from this incredible book called Essentialism, which I love. And the idea around it is sort of it's from a coach. So he shares the story about a coach who sort of says, okay, in the sports analogy, the past play already happened. And if we're thinking about the past play and we're all wound up about what just happened, we're not going to be present in the moment right now and make a good play. And if we're thinking about the future play, like not in the play now, but like, hey, what's the next play? We're going to mess up the play right now and we won't even get the future play. And so this coach talks to his team all the time about what's our win, which is sort of a fun way to think about it. And win is what's important now. And so I love that idea. And it tries to get me to get back into like, what is it right now? What is the most important thing? Because a lot of times when I'm feeling like you were saying, you had multiple clients coming at you, right? I similarly had same. I had things going on with my clients, with my coaching clients. I had things going on in the larger environmental context of life, like our what's happening in our nation, like big things happening for all of us. And then also, I think I've mentioned before, I have my parents are not healthy and my daughter is not healthy. So many things. And I was like, which thing do I address? I can't do all of them. Like I can't be everything to all the things. So where do I need to show up right now? And the win for me was really helpful. But I think, yeah, what was the moment for you, Neil, where you knew you needed to shift, right? There's a moment where you start to feel scattered. Like how did that feel for you? And then what made you realize like actually if I sustain this feeling, I actually am not going to achieve anything for anybody, right? Like and I'm actually going to probably even maybe not do well for myself. So not only will my clients be impacted but me myself. Like what was it that really enabled you to kind of feel that or see that and then decide you needed to make a different move for how you were addressing the requests?
Well, I actually wasn't completely transparent because the issues weren't only work related. Um, I was dealing with some issues from the family side of things. Um, and seeing my son handling things in a very pragmatic manner when things were all over the place for him and his family, um, said to me, your problem is pretty small in comparison. Your problem's a minute. You've been through it for ages. You can pull from the past and deal with how you've dealt with it before, and you know that that will bring you to victory. But his problems were unknown. His problems had through uncertainty. And to see him be the great man that he is and handle them, I needed to have a different perspective so that I could be there for him. And that was truly the turning point. It wasn't work, it was life. And life, if you are willing to step into that present and not shy away from it, life will teach you everything.
It was life. I think I just want to pause us for a moment on that because that whole idea of work life balance infuriates me right now because if you think about it, it's backwards, right? First, it should be life, work, balance. And then I get a little bit, I think we've talked about this, but balance is a hard word for me. We've talked about that. Is it really? And so, um, there's this concept. I heard it from Ariana Huffington. It could be a million other people think it too or have talked about it, but I certainly remember hearing it from her around life work integration, and that it isn't like one or the other. It's just that we're all human, and so it is life, and our work is just one part of our life, and that we have to look at how can we integrate such that all of these things are choices in how we show up, right? What is it that we can control, and how do we decide what's most important now? It's all interrelated, right? Because you had to make that choice, and you had to shift your perspective to say, wait a minute, this stuff over here I can handle. I can manage it differently such that I can show up for where I really need to be right now. And I agree with you. It's life. It's just life. We're gonna have those moments where we're gonna have to make those choices. And so one of the things it's funny as you talk that I think about with when we started this about uncertainty, this conversation of uncertainty. And I think for our listeners, one of the things I'm realizing is to cue into what happens when you start to feel uncertain, right? So where do you go or what are your toolkit? Like you were able to look into the past, like you had a resource to know what to do. And I've been able to sort of I love this idea of popcorn in the movies because in some ways this idea of zooming out to even watch my own life, so to be like, okay, what do I do when I get really uncertain and I feel uncomfortable and I feel out of control? And I was just actually before this on a call with my daughter, Lila, and I was throwing like a million tactical questions at her. And some of them are far off. Like, well, I was just wondering when you come home for Christmas, like what flight are we and how about and I literally I just it was like I didn't
You
realize
threw
how
up on her.
I threw up all of these
You threw
tactical
up on her.
things, like
And you know what?
really tactical. Like, I want to know what flight you're going to be on and where are you going to stay and what time are you going to leave? And she was literally like, that is way too far away. I can't possibly, Mom. And I realized she just said, Mom, this is like a lot. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm throwing up on her because I feel out of control. So
Yeah.
I want to have like plans in place and I want to have structure so that I can go like, okay, well, I have this under control. This thing that's far out has nothing to do with today or tomorrow, but it was like going to give me a false sense of certainty and security and structure because I'm craving that because I don't have it right now because I still have uncertainty this week, which is what I love. Like you said, when's it going to get better? I'm like, I don't know. It's the beginning of a week and I don't think it's going to get better this week. So what am I going to do about that? Well, right. We know uncertainty is part of life. So what are,
But
so what, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
want
tell
to
me.
take a pause here
Yeah.
because it's really important, and especially for our listeners, because we all do this.
Yeah.
We go back into our muscle memory and we project to our family, to our employees, to our bosses, to our world what we need to make ourselves feel in control and safe again. And what happens there is there's a discourse because the other person has no clue where this energy is coming from. Your daughter is sitting there going like this.
For sure.
Whoa, what is going on? Now she knows you well enough that she knows mom needs structure. So she knows you. But think about those that don't know us and don't lean into us in kindness. Think about our employees. Think about our colleagues. Think about friends, new acquaintances. And they see that reaction. Now we have a label.
Mm.
Now we have a label of aggression. Now we have a label of control. That's not who you are. You were just trying to fill a gap in you. And guys, we do need to fill these gaps, but we first have to become aware of how we're doing it. You see, you can fill the gap for yourself, but you cannot make others a victim of your need.
I 100% agree. And I think I think the good news is I now know that gap. So again, you said
Yeah.
self-awareness. I just want to lean in. I named it. I said to her, "Oh, Lila, you know what I'm doing?" I said, I feel out of control and I'm trying to control dates for a trip that are it's months away." And she's like, "Yeah. And by the way, mom, dad just did the same thing." And I was like, "Ah."
Oh.
Right? No surprise. She's like, "I just got off the phone and dad did the same thing." So I get it. You guys feel like a lot's moving and shaking in ways that are uncomfortable and you're trying to like do that, but I can't be the receiving person on that. And it was beautiful. And I think part of what you said, which is when we feel close or when we can be vulnerable or when we can start to say to somebody, "Oh my gosh," like own it when it happens. It was beautiful. She
Exactly.
she went, "No way. Like I'm not taking you this." And that can happen. Friends, colleague, like so you can see people's reaction. I love that you physically moved. For those people that are listening and maybe not watching, there was like a big when somebody throws up on you because they have their own gap, right? It's not
Yeah.
about you. So that moment where you feel someone throwing up on you, their shit, like you can kind of go like, "Oh, this isn't about me," right? Create a little spaciousness. But if you're the person that's doing that and you get to start to feel that reaction, like, I think I just threw up on somebody. It is the most beautiful gift is in that moment to say, "Oh, you know what? I haven't shared with you, but I'm feeling really out of control this week. And I'm realizing that I just put all that onto you. And I apologize. Like, let's back up. Let me zoom out, right? And let's talk about what's happening. And what I actually care about is not the trip that's 2 months away, but like, how are you doing and what's going on this week? I'd love for us to focus on what's most important now, right? Then you get back to this moment. Like what is it with that person that you're interacting with that's really the most important thing? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah.
And that was the most important thing that you said. You get back to the moment. Because the whole time we are projecting, whichever way we do, we're not in the moment. We are in our capsule, that capsule in our head. And the power is acknowledging, knowing that trigger, acknowledging the trigger, and then saying to the person, showing your vulnerability, saying to the person, as you stated, "Hey, I am having a really tough week, and I went out of my way on you." And the fact that you named it, people do not understand when you have frustration, when you have emotions. Do not say, "I'm sad." "I'm sad" doesn't mean anything. "I'm angry." Angry, why? Get to the core. Name your feelings. Name your feelings so you could recognize them when they come back. Because your past is your truth. It really is. You have that whole toolkit, and it's based on your past and naming your feelings and how you got over that situation in the past. That is the way we get better. Because awareness without action is just being basically an observer of your life, not a participant.
Hmm. I love that. And I think the goal is really to minimize the time, that awareness, right? Between awareness and action over time gets shorter. You go,
Yeah.
"Oh, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm doing that thing." Like now I know it. When I get really task oriented, that's lack of control. That's what I'm doing. That's my fix, right? So now I see that quicker. I'm able to see it quicker, but it does take time. So for
Oh, yeah.
some, obviously, I feel like, we always say that we've been in the work for a while. This isn't like we didn't snap and get here. So the fact that I was able to say it, be vulnerable, name it, that all took a really long time to even know that's how I cope. That's a coping mechanism for me. So I think I just want to pause us a little bit on the awareness piece because I
Yeah.
think for some people, that's new. Like, what do you mean?
True.
Right? How do they
Yep.
become aware of a trigger? How do they know that they're and I think I want to just say that if you haven't figured that out for yourself yet, that's okay. Just
Yeah.
start to look for the things you said. Emotionality. any kind of a physical sensation. If somebody is really pissing you off, like that's a moment to go like, why are they pissing me off so much? Like what's going on here? And be able to decide in that gap between you and them, what part, like there's a role, like what part are you playing in that? Is there something that is going on for you, and trying to identify what that is? And then
Mhm.
sometimes, like you said, it could be the other person, right? So
Yeah.
so Lila and I had to have a conversation where she went, whoa, 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 this is too much. And I went, whoa, 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 I need this. And like we had to come up with like what was going on for each of us, and
That's
own our sides, because there's always two people, there's two to tango, we always say that.
Yep.
So just starting to tune into like, what are the moments where you feel really emotionally charged up or withdrawn? There's a bunch of ways in which you can start to say like, I got really withdrawn, I shut down, I didn't want to be in conversation with that person, or I got really defensive and I was like ready to fight, or I right, the fight, flight, freeze,
Yeah.
like that's all part of that first initial ability to become self-aware enough to make a different choice and to zoom out. And so I just kind of want to say we're
Yeah.
talking about it with a lot of practice, but for those people that haven't necessarily started that practice of zooming out and creating space to understand their role in a connection or disconnection, those are some of the first places to look, right? Are you shutting down? Are you really defensive? Do you have an emotional reaction that's really happening for you? And then take some time to sort of try to understand what might be going on.
I that that's it. The taking the time, giving yourself that time to review yourself, to
Mhm.
reflect. We don't often do that. So it's true. I mean, you get to awareness, and awareness is a tough thing. That means you paused and actually took the time to say, what happened here? Why did I react that way? Why do I feel this way? The time is yours. You have to invest that time in yourself. And I know that everybody's like, I've read all those books. This is not about damn books. I do not care about every book that's on the shelf. I care about you. I care about me. I care about Beth, that we are worthy of caring for ourselves and making sure that we are physically, spiritually sane and balanced in the sense of aware of our feelings and emotions and how we handle them, because no book is wiser than you. You can fix you. You just have to be willing to take the time. And let me tell you something, in every failure, there's a success. In every failure, there's knowing a little bit more about you. I remember the first time when you mentioned about awareness, I had to go back. This journey for me has been a 6-year journey. And I went back to being extremely disappointed in a situation that happened. And it was a Saturday, and this is not me, but I wouldn't get out of bed. And I was crying. Again, not me. I'm not a crier. And I was just in bed. And for the first time, I said, I'm giving myself a 24-hour pity party. And then I'm going to pick up my pieces and move forward. And I remember the bedroom. I remember the sun, the birds in the background. I remember every aspect of that room. And I also remember that I promised myself the next time it would be 20 hours. And even in my book, I talk about how I give myself an hour pity party. That took time. That
I
took time.
And I think it's so important that you're sharing this, Neo, because when I just talked about owning it within the same conversation, I mean, let's be clear, that is not typical. Like, for the longest time, I would have to take, like you said, probably for me, it was like longer than 24 hours to go like, what the hell just happened? Like, why am I so pissed off? Like, so pissed off. I'm creating an entire story about how terrible X, Y, and Z human is or situation is or whatever. And then I had to like look at myself and go like, what's going on for you that you're this upset, right? And so I think that does take time. And I love that you just said, and for each individual, it's going to be different, and
Yeah,
certain emotions are going to take longer to identify and understand. So really in your pity party, another way to frame that is really like a learning seeking understanding party
true, true,
in a way, because you're kind of like, what's that about? Let me like figure out what's that about and then allow myself to feel it. So the pity is really like, let me just feel this. Like I am allowed to feel what I'm feeling, and I don't have to justify it, and I don't have to explain it away. I just get to feel. And however long that takes, you get to feel it, you get it flowing through you, and then you get to reflect like, why was that so upsetting? And that's the piece. It's like feeling it's the most important first step. Oftentimes we don't do that, right? We like interrupt the flow of emotion, and it just like stays in us. We never get to actually feel it. So I think the first, that's why I love that you allowed yourself to feel it. So everybody should give themselves the time to like let that emotion flow through you, let
true.
it pass through you, and then try to better understand it so that you shorten that time the next time. I love that you said that you're at an hour or whatever. Like I love it because it's true. The goal is to get to a place where we know ourselves well enough that we can do it in a shorter amount of time. We don't need a week. We go, "Oh, I'm feeling that thing. I know what that is. That's me feeling shame, anger, disappointment. I know it. I know it. I know what that looks like, and I'm not doing it. I'm not going to let that take over. I'm going to own my shit. I'm going to go back and say, here's what I did and here's why." And then that capability allows you to move forward, right? You're able to like take the information, acknowledge the information for yourself and for whoever you were with, if that's appropriate, and then create that movement. Like you said, the action comes after you're able to name it, acknowledge it, and decide you want to do something different.
Absolutely. And we also have to remember that you can schedule that reflection because many a times the reason we don't uh, address it is because we are juggling taking the kids to the event, cooking dinner, finishing a project, life. However, you own your life, and it is worth scheduling time for awareness and reflection because in joy and gratitude, it's all about how we flow. Thank you. We will see you soon.